welcome back to r/NPD, the series where we review posts from the Narcissistic Support Group subreddit and offer to the anonymous individuals of the site professional support. I'm Sophia Vandermeer, published author, NLP practitioner and cognitive behavioural specialist. So without further ado, let's jump in. Our first post comes from user BPD Lover I don't know why, who says, NPD, but also fixer mentality. I'm not diagnosed, but I seem to have some traits of covert narcissism, and I'm also attracted and have been heavily involved with a BPD girl. I should logically think that she is the worst scum and everything I don't like about women, but I also gravitate towards her and toxic women in general. Is it a weird fixer mentality? Is it possible to be that way with NPD? I wouldn't so much as label this as fixer mentality as I would superhero mindset. The superhero fantasy appeals to the human mind, not only because it places you on a pedestal above others, but because it carries with it an inert connotation of goodness. This is doubly effective in those suffering from NPD or those that have the trait, not only due to the possibility of delusions of grandeur, but because narcissists find that they base their realities on what they perceive to be proven true. If they want to see themselves as above others, they must prove this by acting and getting away with doing so. The same holds true for being good. If they want to see themselves as good, that too must be proven. But I cannot say enough, this isn't an inherent flaw, it merely makes life more difficult, and it is that much harder to deceive yourself. For the OP, it is understandable to be attracted to a BPD personality type, as they can be warm and gracious, and this in turn can appeal to self-esteem. If you recognise though that you have some NPD traits, then this will feed into your vulnerabilities. The problem lies, and I dare say you experience this as indicated by the toxic comment, that she also can display other characteristics. Continuing such a relationship requires that she receive quite in-depth therapy and recognise the need for it, and to be consistently working on herself. This is a challenge and can't be done just to appease you. The other side of the coin is that when she does turn, if as mentioned, and you do possess the NPD covert vulnerable traits, these will be triggered and you may not see the best side of yourself coming out, and you certainly won't feel it. Moving forward, to avoid codependency developing between you, instead of healthy boundaries, it'll require that a significant amount of work be done, and it needs to come from an internal drive with external help. You can be supportive and forgiving, but you won't be able to be that change, and you run a very real risk of consistently having your vulnerabilities triggered and unhealthy responses ensuing. Consider the long-term commitment carefully, OP. If you can't handle it in the long term, and it will be, please find another avenue to prove yourself and your value. Our post now comes from user Willie6981, who says, so I might have NPD. I've taken a few tests and some of the answers honestly fit, but quite a few do not. How do I really know? I recently got a divorce because of this, and when I looked up on Xcora, her actual content and questions were only partially true. I feel as if narcissism is a first insult type of thing. Whoever said it first about the other is the one who is right, and is how it almost feels like. I feel as if I might have some tendencies, but I don't believe I'm textbook NPD. It is definitely true, OP, in this day and age that the title of narcissist is used in the aftermath of relationships to wash one's hands clean. By labelling the other person as a narcissist, the relationship is then seen as hopeless and a breakup inevitable. It serves as an insult for sure, but its intended purpose is actually to deflate the emotional burden by removing emotion from the equation. The other person can look back and say with often delusional certainty, it wasn't my fault, there was nothing I could have done. However, even the use of such a label can be a sign of narcissism, which only further muddies the water when trying to determine the truth of the matter. Of note, however, is the fact that the narcissists often struggle to deceive themselves. This means that the brand of being a narcissist will be hard to shake without grounded external evidence. While I cannot comment to the truth of the matter, and instead only to the critique, the shallow and oversaturated manner in which this disorder is so often thrown about, what I can tell you is that without acknowledging your partner demise of the relationship, and none of us are perfect, it'll be more difficult to trust again. A better question would be, if I do possess some of these traits, and a healthy esteem is important, which ones are destructive for my relationships? There is nothing to say that you can't improve. Focusing forward rather than backward is a healthier way. Take responsibility for your part and your reactions. Show accountability for your part in upsetting another. And through kindness, if you don't even feel empathy, you will still be able to move forward. Know the criteria and values that are important to you, and then whatever name your ex likes to bandy about will have less and less impact. Our post now comes from user JP242405, who says, "Can someone explain what empathy feels like? I don't think the question is actually clear, but I don't know how else to ask it." So while the OP received a number of helpful insights with the comments on this post, what far few people touched upon is the point of differentiation between empathy and cognitive emotional understanding, which is to say not much at all. It's fairly common from those suffering with NPD to adopt a grass is always greener on the other side mentality, believing that empathy is this elated sense of other that all of a sudden makes life that much easier. While it is true that empathy assists in interpersonal skills in almost every aspect, it is worth noting that the distinction between empathy and a lack thereof is less a gorge and more of a thin wire fence. Let me begin by stating that true understanding, the implication of absolute empathy where you feel totally as another does, is impossible. Absolute empathy, therefore, is inherently impossible. What empathy is like, what it feels like, is a small nugget of truth you can occasionally find within yourself when another mentions their joy or sadness. Something within you evokes that faint memory of something similar. Empathy is like a song barely remembered, its words lost to the mind's shadow, its tune placeless and without substance. You ask yourself what it was, who was it that sung it, and you can find no trace that such a song existed. No reason to believe, yet the absolute certainty of truth that you feel something and that you know. You feel something and you can relate, even if it's intangible, that feeling grants certainty. The difference between empathy and cognitive understanding is like that of emotional rhetoric within a debate. When one side uses controlled, personal emotion, so too must the other to not seem callous and uncaring. It allows you to say the right thing, to relate, and more than that, to speak with a matching vigour that will not be lost on the other person. If you struggle to determine, if you have it, a rational understanding of why someone feels a certain way, and then an appropriate, kind, considered response will go a long way in any relationship. Most of us just want to feel heard.